For decades, American policymakers maintained a foundational commitment. Direct attacks on US military forces would trigger immediate overwhelming retaliation. It wasn't ambiguous, it wasn't conditional, it was doctrine. The message to adversaries was unmistakable. Cross this line, and America responds. Then Iran tested it. In January 2020, Iran launched ballistic missiles directly at American military installations, dozens of them. The attack struck US bases. American forces were present. This wasn't a proxy skirmish or a cyber operation. This was direct Iranian military action against Americans. Everything the doctrine predicted should have followed. Swift retaliation, escalating response, military mobilization. The expectation was set, the rhetoric was deployed, military planners prepared. But something unexpected happened. No massive air campaign, no regime change, operation launched. No immediate retaliation matching the promised automatic response. Instead measured restraint, instead calibrated calculation, instead a pause. What most observers initially interpreted as American weakness actually revealed something far more significant, the true location of America's red line. It wasn't where the doctrine claimed it was where the rhetoric suggested it was somewhere else entirely. And now adversaries understood precisely where that line actually sat. That clarity, uncomfortable, as it was changed everything about how the region would behave. On January 8th, 2020, Iran launched roughly a dozen ballistic missiles at Al-Assad Air Base in western Iraq, where American forces were stationed. The missiles were identified, tracked, and expected. They hit the base. Facilities were damaged. American personnel were present. This was unambiguous, a direct Iranian military strike against American forces on American military installations. According to established American doctrine, this should have triggered an immediate overwhelming response. Senior Defense Department officials had stated this repeatedly. The Secretary of Defense reiterated it. Military commanders understood it. The message to Iran was explicit. Direct attacks on Americans produce automatic consequences. Military preparations were visible. The machinery of response was ready. The expectation was set throughout Washington, the region, and certainly in Tehran. Yet the response that followed was something fundamentally different. No immediate airstrikes, no rapid escalation, no deployment of additional carrier groups signaling imminent major operations. Instead, what emerged was measured, calibrated, restrained. Statement, a pause. Calculation rather than automatic reaction. This gap between the promised response and the actual response created a strategic revelation with consequences that would reshape regional calculations. America's adversaries now understood with certainty that the red line America had publicly drawn was not where America would actually operate. The red line against direct attacks on Americans wasn't invented in 2020. It was foundational to American Middle East strategy since the Iranian Revolution of 1979. For over 4 decades, American policymakers built a strategic framework around several core commitments: protect allies in the Gulf, maintain freedom of navigation through critical sea lanes, prevent any single regional power from achieving hegemony, and establish unambiguous consequences for direct attacks on American personnel or installations. These weren't casual commitments. They were reinforced through military presence, alliance relationships, explicit doctrine, and occasionally through direct military action. Multiple administrations, Reagan, Clinton, Bush, Obama, repeated these commitments through rhetoric and demonstrated them through behavior. But the conditions that justified these commitments gradually shifted. American energy independence increased, reducing the strategic urgency of Gulf dominance. Iraq and Afghanistan exposed the costs and limits of sustained military involvement in the region. Iran's military capabilities expanded, missile technology improved, drone programs, advanced proxy networks developed. Each of these changes created hidden pressure on the old framework. The automatic retaliation commitment became increasingly expensive to maintain. The strategic rationale weakened. The costs rose. The benefits became less clear. By 2020, the red line remained publicly stated, but operationally it was under strain. The question wasn't whether America would abandon the commitment. It was how America would recalibrate it. Trump's decision to restrain rather than retaliate rested on a calculation that differed fundamentally from Cold War deterrence logic. The traditional framework assumed automatic response. The threat itself was the deterrent, but that framework ignored a critical problem. What happens when automatic response becomes strategically irrational? If Trump ordered full retaliation, he faced a dilemma without good options. Limited strikes matching the scale of Iran's attack would appear proportional, but potentially weak, inviting further Iranian escalation and suggesting America lacked resolve. Larger operations risked appearing as escalation toward regime change, committing America to a major Middle East war with unclear duration, cost, or endpoint. Either path carried substantial strategic expense with uncertain benefit. Intelligence assessments likely showed that Iranian retaliation to American strikes would be severe missile attacks on shipping attacks on allies' cyber operations. America would then face the choice of accepting those responses and losing credibility, or escalating further into deeper conflict. Trump faced additional pressures. Domestic political appetite for new Middle East military commitments was exhausted. After Iraq and Afghanistan, international partners were uncertain whether America would sustain costs in the region. Economic concerns were rising. The broader strategic picture suggested the American vital interests in the Middle East were narrowing, not expanding. Trump chose to reset the expectation. He drew a new red line: direct attacks on US forces don't automatically trigger retaliation. Instead, retaliation depends on whether the attack threatens what the administration defines as vital American interests. This wasn't abandonment of deterrence, it was a redefinition of it. Automatic response shifted to conditional response. And that shift revealed what America's actual red line had become: not abstract doctrine, but interest-based calculation that adversaries could now precisely measure and plan around. For decades, ambiguity protected American interests. When red lines were unclear or believed absolute, adversaries assumed the worst. Ambiguity created safety. It discouraged testing. That ambiguity ended. Regional actors now understood precisely what the red line was. Conditional interest-based, calculable. Iran knows direct attacks on American bases, if limited, may not trigger automatic retaliation. America's Gulf allies understand protection depends on how Washington defines the vital interests, a shifting calculation. Non-state actors understand consequences scale with perceived American interests, not automatic response. This clarity makes American behavior predictable, but predictability cuts both ways. Actors understanding the threshold can calibrate actions to stay just below it. Strategic space opens between automatic response and vital interests. Iran probes it, others exploit it. Each probing establishes as new norms. This is the paradox clarity about red lines reshapes regional calculations far more decisively than ambiguity ever could. When adversaries fear the unknown, they hesitate. When they understand the threshold precisely, they plan, they measure, they test incrementally. This is how strategic position shifts. But the most dangerous implication isn't what this reveals about Iran, it's what it reveals about how China and Russia should think about challenging American interests elsewhere. Three distinct scenarios now follow from this revealed red line, each with escalating consequences. The first is the tested boundary scenario. Regional actors will probe deliberately below the newly understood threshold. Iran will test with proxy actions, cyber attacks, harassment of shipping. Calibrated challenges designed to stay below the point, triggering automatic American response. Others will follow. Each probing establishes new norms. The red line migrates downward through accumulated small violations. What triggered retaliation yesterday becomes tolerable today. The second is alliance recalibration. America's Gulf allies, Saudi Arabia, the Emirates and others now doubt automatic protection. If America won't respond to direct attacks on its own forces, why assume it will respond to attacks on them? They pursue independent military capabilities, they hedge toward other powers. China and Russia offer different security arrangements without the conditions America once provided. The alliance structure that underpinned American Gulf dominance gradually weakens. The third is strategic competition recalibration. China observes that America won't automatically respond to direct challenges and reconsiders Taiwan. Russia observes the same about Ukraine. They study the template. How did Iran calibrate? What was the threshold? How much can we challenge before facing response? Great powers learn from what was revealed. The likely outcome combines elements of all three, gradually shifting leverage in regions where America once held unquestioned military superiority. Trump's Iran calculus revealed a fundamental truth. America's red line in the Middle East isn't automatic, it's conditional. It rests on cost-benefit calculations about vital interests, not on doctrine or historical commitment. This isn't weakness, it's rationality. But rationality carries consequences. When red lines are clearly revealed, they become maps for strategic action. Adversaries know precisely how much they can challenge before triggering response. Allies understand they cannot rely on automatic protection. Competitors learn the template for testing American commitments without triggering a catastrophic response. This is how strategic position actually shifts in the modern world. Not through dramatic military confrontation, not through headline-grabbing crises, instead through careful exploitation of clarity about commitments, through repeated small violations that gradually establish new norms, through incremental probing that migrates the red line downward over time. Each violation pushes the boundary slightly further. Each acceptance sets a new precedent. Strategic space expands for challenges. The uncomfortable truth embedded in this moment is that American military superiority no longer translates directly into political outcomes. The world's most powerful military can be constrained by rational calculation about costs and interests that truth will define great power. Competition for decades. But here's the question that now keeps strategic planners awake in Beijing and Moscow. If America's red line in the Middle East is conditional rather than automatic, what does that tell us about the red line over Taiwan, and what does it tell us about Ukraine?